that's experimental. Okay, Father Moo here, just signing on. I had another idea, which was I think it might be fun to plug in the Nord Micro Modular, a synth I've used for many, many years, and do a little bit of streaming on Twitch to see if the kids get the original video game or not. Yeah, so I'm starting off here now with a little demo of what I'll be doing over there. You can go check it out if you're interested. Basically, here's the setup. You can see I've got a sound card here, and this little red box is the hardware synth known as the Nord Micro Modular. You connect this via MIDI and USB to a computer. On the computer you see something that looks like this, an editor screen where I can drag around little modules and make adjustments to them as I see fit. And the hardware will update what I'm doing. And as you can see here, my microphone is plugged in on one mono channel, and the output of the synth, which is making those annoying sounds, is being plugged into the second audio channel. So you can hear me talk and you can hear the synth make it sound. The only thing I'm adding on top of that is in my sound card, there's a tiny bit of reverb. Oh, there wasn't even reverb on input 2 until now. Let's put some on. There we go. So that should make it a little bit easier on the ears. But yeah, that's basically it. So my plan here is to show some old patches that I made before, to mute certain parts of them and make them easier to understand. I'll also build a few patches from scratch, hopefully not as annoying as this one. Let's try a less annoying patch just to be mainstream. Where's a nice mainstreamer? There we go. It may not sound like, mutable rings, but over the years with the Nord Micro Modular, I was able to make many pretty little generative patches that came up with their own melodies in real time. So, yeah, the editor is mostly what we're going to focus on, and some people might be saying, well, Mr. Moo, I can't go out and buy one of those synths, so I won't be able to learn how to do what you're doing. But all the modules here are similar to what you'd find in VCV Rack or in eurorack. Actually, this is modeled after the Dopefer system, I think, in some ways. And yeah, you can learn synthesis on any modular system following their method here. It's actually pretty smart. You can even make some of the cables disappear, and they're color coded, so red is audio and blue is control and yellow is logic. So if I want to look at just my audio chain, I can see the oscillators here, some of them going into amps or effects, and then going into some other effects over here before they arrive at the mix, and they're mixed down in mono. Anyway, yeah, let's make something from scratch just to show how simple it really can be. So my synth here has the catchy name of the Lathe of Heaven, and some versions of the Nord Modular had 4 different slots. My Micro Modular only has 1. So I'm going to use that slot right now, which is being occupied by Alia Jack to S, the generative patch. And the sound is cuts out because we don't hear anything. All the modules have been erased. Up here you can see the load on the synth. We have no modules, so we're using up 0% of the hardware processing power of the Micro Modular. You can see the patch's name and the voices I'm requesting and how many it's actually giving me. If you use, let's say, 33% or less of the load, you can request 3 voices, and as long as you don't go over 33%, you should be able to get them. But we'll talk about that in more detail later. Here you can also see the virtual knobs. Just to go back, I have to mention this in my first broadcast because it's such a crucial part. Let's go back to the picture. So this little red box here has 2 buttons on the right, mainly used for patch selection. It's got one on the left, which is a shift button, and this is a volume knob. But these 3 knobs are very important. There's only 3 of them, but they're super important. Why? Because I can map them here, knob 1, knob 2, and knob 3. The big, more expensive version of the Nord Modular had more knobs, and it had wheels and keys, and you could map more things. Here we just have these 3, but one knob in the real world can be mapped to multiple knobs on the synth. So that means I can turn this knob, and it will have the effect of turning any 3 or up to, I think, 15 knobs in the synth in real time. And they can be done by percentages, so that means that fully left here would be at about, let's say, 10 o'clock on the knob. And if you set it only to move from 10 to 11, then when you turn this knob all the way to the right, it would just be at 11 o'clock instead of all the way to its right. That may not be easy to understand now, but you'll see me doing it a lot later on, and it'll make more sense. So like I said, let's make something simple. When I right-click, I can see all the types of modules organized into different categories. I'm going to start with a 2 output. I usually like to work from left to right. So all this is doing is saying whatever audio, remember red is color-coded to audio, whatever audio you send here will be sent to the outputs of the real-world synth in real life. Here I've only got 1 cable plugged in, so actually I can sum these 2 together because I'm only going to send a mono signal to it. And next, just I don't even really know what I'm making here, so I'm going to throw in a 3-input mixer. This would be one of my defaults. Let's say I wanted to make a drum and bass synth. I'd know that 1 or 2 of those inputs would belong to the drums, and 1 input would belong to the bass, and then the little mixer will feed into the output. So I'm part way there already. Let's try. What's an easier one to start with? Let's make only drums today. The Nord Micro Modular comes with 2 types of drum oscillator. The big one and the small one. The big one, as you can see, has little presets. So here's kick drum 1, kick drum 2, kick drum 3. If you don't know how to synthesize a drum from scratch, that's okay. You can just pick a preset and go with that. And perc-osc, or percussion oscillator, doesn't have presets. It has knobs to make different types of sounds. And it's pretty good at a variety of things, little clicks and conga-like sounds. So since we still can't hear anything, let's get something going to make them play a beat. How about a sequencer? Seems reasonable enough. An event sequencer. So again, I'm working from left to right here. This is a 16-step sequencer, so I can click certain steps to be on, and it will play beats on those steps. Since nothing is wired up, you're still not hearing anything. That's totally cool. Let's take the logic out of the sequencer and into drum synth 1, and the logic out of the second sequencer channel and into trig in. You might be saying, hey, wait a minute, this one was yellow out, and you got a red trigger in. That's okay. I know the synth well enough to know that that's the right place to put it. There may be other cases where an audio signal could trigger the percussion oscillator, which is probably why they made it red. So I guess the point I'm trying to make here is, just like in the real world of modular synthesis, you may know what an input expects. For example, trigger input here expects a yellow logic signal, but you don't have to follow that rule. And even if you don't follow it, you probably won't damage your hardware. Since my hardware is all digital here, it definitely won't be hurt. So let's make a few more connections. The kick drum out is going into mixer channel 1, and the other drum, I don't know what kind of drum he is yet, is going into channel 2. Nothing is going into channel 3. The sequencer isn't moving. It needs a clock. There's a variety of clocks we can use. Clocks are hidden in, is it here? Been a while since I fired this bad boy up. Here we go. They're hidden in LFOs. I could take, if I was running a complicated MIDI setup, I could take a cable from another synth and run it into the MIDI in of the micro modular, and these little drums would play in time with it. I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to make a clock inside the synth itself. I'm going to send 4 pulses per beat to the clock input of the sequencer. Uh-oh, things are happening now. Hear that? So you can see the little green light is now moving on the sequencer. For reasons that I'm not going to get too deep into, we might also need to connect a reset button if we were getting more complex sequences. But we're not there yet, so let's just work with what we have. As you can see, I could adjust the tempo. And you can hear the kick drum is playing on the first 3 beats here. Boom, boom, boom. That's these 3 buttons I pressed down. If I turn this one off, you won't hear it there anymore. As I said, kick 3 is giving us a kick drum, and the other guy is giving us a sound that's something like a conga drum. Let me do some more experimenting here. Up here I said we have our load, how much work the processor in the Nord Micro Modular is trying to do. Well, he's not working too hard. He's at 22%. So what I'm going to do now is demonstrate that knob that I mentioned. First, let's just experiment a bit with decay. On the percussion oscillator, if I turn this to the right, its note should be held for longer. Right? And for a shorter amount. So I like having that flexibility, so I'm going to assign the decay knob to morph group 1, which is the red colored group. And as you can see, the little knob turned red. His range is from 63 to 63, which is nothing. Now what I would do is hold down Control and I used my mouse here to increase the range of the decay. So now his range, if I hold the mouse over him, is 63 to 86. In other words, when the real world knob number 1 is fully left, this guy will be at 63. And when the real world knob is at fully right, this guy will be at 86. You can't see me turning the knob in real time, but if you look up here, you can see that guy responding. And you can hear the same thing we heard before. When it's up to the right, the decay is up. And when I turn it to the left, decay goes back down. As I said, I can assign multiple things to this. So I could say, I'm going to assign the pitch of this oscillator also to group 1, except now when, oops, that wasn't what I meant to do. There we go. I'm going to have to hold down Control So I sent this one in the opposite direction. So actually, when this knob is fully right, he will have the opposite effect on that knob. When the knob is fully right, the pitch went down instead of going up because I had chosen to enter that data in the opposite direction. The decay got longer. You can still hear it going doom. But when I go back again, the pitch is up and the decay is short. So you see what I mean? I get a lot of flexibility out of that knob. In real world terms, I only have one knob at my disposal out of a total of 3. But if I can map those to multiple functions in the synth, I can get a lot of flexibility. So this is one of the things that would be a little bit more complicated to do on a real-world modular. You could do it, but most of the times it's one knob per function, and if you want something to move, you have to grab it and move it. You could assign a bunch of knobs on your real-world modular and send an LFO to all of them to cause them all to change, but it would still be quite a complex procedure, let's put it that way. Later on, you'll see why this is more important. I can even build whole songs on the Nord Micro Modular, admittedly simplistic little songs, and I can change from the verse to the chorus to the other parts by twisting the knobs in real time, or I can mute parts of the drum pattern and then fade them back in using multiple knobs like this. So this is it. You saw me build a very simplistic little machine here. This is a patch. I promised myself while working on this project that I would save every single thing I made as part of this into real permanent patches so they could be used by anyone else who has a Nord modular who's curious. The audience for that might be quite small. I don't really care. I'm going to save them all anyway. So I'm going to name this streaming patch archive. And I'm going to name this, don't crash on me, baby. Sometimes the old editor will crash on you because it was written for like Windows 98 or something. So I'm going to call this Proto Drum Machine. Save it. Oh, I'm going to number it just for posterity. So now that I've saved that little file, you can see it's been named 01 Proto Drum Ma because there wasn't enough space. I could also save it into the synth itself. Patch, save in synth. And yeah, because I've backed these all up before today, I'm going to save it right in slot 1 of bank 1. I only have 99 slots here. And he's in there now. Even if I move away to another patch and then move back to patch 1, there he is in slot number 1. He loaded it up and he played the same sounds. And when I twist that knob, he does the same thing. Slightly boring sounding, but still did a good job. I'm just going to show off a couple more patches before I end this video today to give you an idea of what kind of sounds can come out of this machine. Let's see what we can dial up here. Heard this one already. Here's a nice one. Okay, here's another example just to totally change directions here. This is not a self-generating patch. This is one that's designed to be played from a keyboard. So I'm going to bring up the keyboard floater here. I don't have a MIDI keyboard in front of me, but I can use my mouse to play notes as if I had one. So I've named this one Ambient FM Pad. I have no idea when this is from. I have the general conception that this is probably someone else's patch that I modified because, especially back in the day, and to be honest, even today, I'm not much of an FM programmer. So, here's another hint. This knob has been assigned to wheel, but since I don't have an actual wheel on my synth, it's unlikely that I would have assigned it to that. So instead, I'm going to put the green one as knob 3. Wait, is that right? Let's just undo that. It doesn't matter. What matters here is the structure. So let's just look at what we got. When I play a note here, you can hear it quite clearly. Up here, I'm requesting 12 voices, which I would never get, but I am being given 6. So that means I could play 6 notes on my MIDI keyboard in real time. Why? Because the load here is only 15.9%. So if you only use a sixth of the synth's load, you can have 6 multiples of the same patch created, and therefore 6 voices. You can see here this module says key. So when a key is pressed, it generates a gate, and that gate is opening this ADSR, this envelope. That's why you don't see one connecting the note to the note in of the oscillators, but that's because that's already pre-wired in the Nord Micro Modular. And going over here, you can see they've used 2 different sine waves and also an LFO to create the tone. So basically, you have one oscillator, which is modulating a second oscillator, and the first oscillator is also being modulated by an LFO, and that's what gives it the FM digital sound that we're hearing. This is what I recognize as something I added myself because I do this so often. And when I was new to the synth, I would do it a lot. I added an effect called digitizer. It allows you to reduce the bit rate and the sample rate. I didn't really choose to reduce the bit rate because it's off, but the sample rate has been dialed down a bit here from its full setting like this. Here you would get a more high quality signal. See how clear that is? But when I dial the sample rate down, I get a more video gamey sound. So basically, as I walk back in my memory, someone else had made a powerful little virtual synth that gave you 6 notes and only used 5 modules to do it. I chose to modify that by adding an audio processor here in the sound and then send it directly to the outputs. So it's very simple, extremely simple. Here's how I could change things in real time. I could say, I like this sound. I like how the reduction in the sample rate sounds. So I'm going to take an LFO. Let's choose a random generator. That's giving me a smooth blue type output, blue being control. And I'm going to patch that output to here so that I can control the sample rate. It's sort of like wobbling this knob in real time, except instead of doing it yourself, you're getting the machine to do it. This is how much I want to affect it. So I'm going to affect it, 34 slightly. I don't want this to wildly swing up and down. I'm also going to slow its speed down. So now when I press a key here, you should be able to hear a random adjustment of the sample rate in real time, which should sound a bit wobbly. Let's hear. So in the high part of the pitch, you can hear that digital fuzziness, I guess you could call it. Let's hear a little bit. Let's allow it to affect it a little bit more. So now it's becoming more extreme. Could be useful as an effect, but for musical purposes, let's keep it down here a bit. Yeah, I like it. So again, I could save this into my synth for later, and or rename it as Ambient FM Pad 2 as a variation on the first one, so I can keep my original. Before I stop here today, let's find another couple of presets which do interesting things. Here's one I made myself. Now I don't need the keyboard floater because it's playing by itself, so I'll close that. I recognize my odd name for the patch as being Emperor. I don't know what that means, but basically it's a self-generating noise synth, and you can see a lot of the knobs here have been colored red, green, or blue. So I'm going to turn this one up a little bit, and then I'm going to twist the knobs. So if you watch here, you'll see the knobs moving in real time, and you should hear the random sound change in various unusual ways. Let's listen. Weird stuff. At certain settings, it even goes silent temporarily, which is of course part of the plan. And then it pops back into existence again. So again, in a future episode, I might, rather than just glossing over this one and letting you hear weird sounds, I might go back and, remove some of the different connections here and let us figure out what we're really hearing. For example, here we can see that there's just this one trigger for the envelope, and then you can see the red audio cables generating the oscillator, going into the amplifier, then into a filter, another filter, a digitizer, another filter for some reason, and a phaser, and then the outputs of one filter and the other phaser are being mixed back together. These random generators are what making it weird. There's another one down here making it weird. I don't know why he got to be over there. He should be here. Makes more sense. But yeah, I don't have time to go into all of that today. Here's another one made by someone completely different. I don't know who made this one. I do remember from its name that I've used it before. So let me get my keyboard floater back. Notice here that the other guy may have had a more powerful synth and requested 32 voices. Well, this one is using up 46%, so it's only able to give me 2 voices. But it is a cool sound, as I recall. Almost like bagpipes, maybe? Cool sound overall. Here's another weirdo made by me. Oh, we heard this one before, I think. I can't remember. Oh, this wasn't the one we opened with. This is Bass Skull. Let's just look at the knobs here again. We don't need the keyboard floater. Make some adjustments to the weirdness. Anyway, I feel like I've rambled on quite a ways here. As I said, I'm going to try and start streaming maybe once or twice a week on Twitch. Today I just recorded the video and put it on my YouTube channel because that's where a few people are tuning in. If you like this stuff and want to learn more about how modular works or how the Nord Micro Modular does it, that's where I'll be doing it. I'll try to leave the streams up there for people to watch later if they're not watching in real time. But yeah, more of this stuff, more weird plus also melodic stuff. Let's find out all the weird things this little box can do. Quite a few things. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.